Okay, I'm at it again. I made another album for a friend. This time it's actually for a wedding. And so I'm just going to do a quick flip through so you can see this. This is actually an 8.5 by 11. And I have used the Day by Day collection by Minte. If I can, I will try to link this collection down below. So that's something that you can get. And I really like how this has turned out. Now, I was telling another friend about this book and how I was going to make a box. And she was like, how in the heck are you going to make a box for it? Tutorial for today is how to make a box for this big old album, this 8.5 by 11 album. Guys, you're going to need glue, chipboard, a scoreboard, and some paper. So this paper is actually thinner. So this is like copy weight paper, and that's the kind of paper that you need for the binding on the box. You need some pretty paper to cover the box and some acetate because we are going to do another peek hole for this album, which I think is going to be super cute. Chipboard I will list. It is from Amazon. This chipper actually might be a little too thick for this project. However, it's going to be a good thing to be too thick because I do want this to last quite a while. This is actually 80 point thick cardboard from Amazon, also known as bookboard, and it is stinking thick. I also made the cover out of this chipboard, so it has multiple uses for sure. But those are the supplies that you'll need, and we're going to get started. We're going to start by making our binding. So when you create your boxes, you need something to bind it. So this is not tape. This is actually paper with glue. And I love using that example because you can really see what it looks like. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard, and I'm going to do the black. The top is black and the bottom is white, I believe. So I'm going to use black and white cardstock. Well, printer paper, really. This is like really super thin. You want it thin because you want to be able to bend it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to score this entire thing at every ½ inch interval. So ½ inch, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, and so on. So we're just going to go through and score everything 1 inch apart, starting at the ½ inch mark. And then we're going to take this and we're going to fold it, because you want to fold it before you cut it. And then we're going to cut it at every inch mark. We want to make a whole bunch of different strips so that we can make the tape that's necessary to bind the box. So I'm going to do this with the black and the white. Now I'm using 12 by 12 cardstock because my box is going to be longer than 11 inches long. My other album, that was the 8 by 8 album that I made, was less than 11 inches, so I could get away with just using normal letter-sized printer paper for my binding. So if you can, try to keep your album smaller. This is a wedding album, so I wanted them to be able to put more than just one photo on a page. The 8 by 8 album is really good if you only want one photo on the page and maybe 2 additional supporting photos. So I know this girl is not a scrapbooker. I'm going to save this. I might use this later. Again, it does not matter that this is crumpled and there's creases because I'm using it for the binding, so I'm not really concerned about that. But anyway, the girl is not a scrapbooker, so I know for her it would be best to just go through and be able to print 4x6 photos and not have to worry about fidgeting with foreign sizes. You know, I mean, she could easily get the Project Life app and do 4x3s or 2x3s, but again, I want this project not to be hard for her to do later on. I just want her to be able to slap and stick. So I'm just going through and creasing everything. I find it's easier just to crease while everything is together than go through and try to crease the individual 1-inch strips. Just something I learned going through this process. So, trying to do this quickly so you don't have to sit here and watch me crease. That seems boring. Sorry. But it is a relatively quick process. The thing that takes the time is figuring out the measurements that you want for the box. So you want to be able to lift the box out of, or I'm sorry, you want to be able to lift the book out of the box. So you have to give a margin for your hands to be able to fit inside the box around the book. So your measurements can kind of get funky because of that. And so that's what we're going to go through today is the different measurements. And I have not planned this photo album box out at all. So I just know I need a box that's big enough to hold my book, and so that it fits snugly and is able to open and close easily. And I think I do want to do, my concern is looking at my album, I placed my icons too far up on the album. So like when I was looking, and I was saying, oh, I want to do a peekaboo, right? There's not much of a margin here, so I am going to have to be cognizant about how thick this is. Like, that's only a finger width, and I have a whole bunch of room down here. Like, I wish I had just moved everything down and centered it a little bit better. It is what it is. If I could only get, like, right here, I don't think it'll be that big of a deal as long as I get the name in there. So, take my trimmer, and I'm just going to cut at the 1-inch mark. So, I'll show you what this is going to look like. So, it's going to look like this. It's the 1-inch mark, and I can fold on that line. And I'm just going to go through, and quickly, these do not have to be perfect, because they are going to be covered by the decorative paper. So, I'm just going through and keeping my larger piece of the paper on the right hand side so I can center it a little bit easier, and then using the 1-inch mark on the opposite side of my trimmer, on the left hand side of my trimmer, to get this to go back and forth. Very easy. And I've got my strips now. I can always make more if I need it, but I think for now, that's what I'm going to use. You're going to bind outside and inside, and when you do this, you want to make sure you go all the way to the top and then cover the corners. Covering the corners is going to make it look beautiful and stand out against, like, say it's not homemade kind of thing. Okay, so I have a little bit of a thing that I gotta work through, right? So my album is the width of my chipboard. So I have to be cognizant that I'm gonna use a lot of chipboard on this box because I have to create the base and the top. Now, this actually is a pretty good width. But I also have to think, okay, so I need to be able to make my box fit on top, my box lid fit on top of my box base. So I need to make my base so that I can pull this out like this. Okay, so my hand width is about 3/4 to get it easily in and out. Okay, and my chipboard is about 1/4. I think it's 1/4. Let me look. Oh, 1/8 of an inch thick. So when I put my things on top, I have to be aware. Okay, so I've got 1/8 of an inch here, and I need 1 inch width here so that I can pull out my thing. Okay, so 1 inch. Let's measure. It's going to be about 10 inches wide. Yeah, let's do 10 inches wide. Let's see, is that going to be, nope, I'm going to do 10.5. Well, I'm going to do 10.25. We're going to do 10.25. Okay, so I'm going to make a, let me scoot this up so you can see what I'm doing, or I'm going to sideways it. So I've got my chipboard, my book, and my hand width. And if I'm going to go up here actually, so we can actually see the inches instead of the centimeters next to it. So right there, I'm at 9.25. So 9.25 plus 1 inch is 10.25. So that's how big my box base is going to be. So I counted for the chipboard being on top of my base, and I counted for my finger width. So 10.25 is there. And then I got to account for a little bit of give and my chipboard. Okay, so 1/4. I'm gonna sit right about at 12, aren't I? Let's see. I can get away with 11.5, I think. So if I put this on here, that's good. And if I put it at 11.5, oh, that's gonna be really tight. Okay, I'm gonna have to do 12. I'm gonna do 12. You don't want your book to be smushed in there. That's the big concern, right? Okay, so 12. It's gonna be right there. That's actually maybe too big. Let's do 11.75. So we've got 11.75 by like this. Using my T-square, this is really helpful. And don't be afraid to do this too, right? Like, might as well. And write down your measurements. Wish I had a better eraser, but you know, it is what it is. Okay, so this is 11.75. Oops. And this is, what was this? I can't remember now. See? 10.25. So now I've got this huge piece right here that I can do my boxes on. Okay, so if I measure this width, my binding here is 1 inch. So I'm going to do 1.25 tall. And since I already have this already situated, I can go in and just do 1 1/4 inch. So I need 1. That's a 1 1/2. Oh my goodness. Let's do this right, Nikki. 1 1/4. Okay. And then 1 1/4. So those two can be my box side here. 1 and 2. And then I can get my box lid out of this as well. So my lid is probably going to be, let's do a 1/2 inch. So here's a 1/2 and here's a 1/2. I'm going to cut these strips. So this one, this one, this one, and this one. And then I've got this section here for whatever else I want. I'm not going to worry about the top of my lid yet, so I'll save this bit for later. Okay. So this is 1 1/2. This is 1 1/2. This is just a 1/2. Again, this is going to be covered by fancy paper, so I don't care that there's writing on here. I'm going to write all day long if I need to. So we're going to cut this. Now, this is why I like my rotary blade, right? I can cut through chipboard. I can use my Tim Holtz cutter to cut through chipboard. If you have an X-Acto knife, you're going to have to use a steel edge and your X-Acto knife to get these cuts straight. So you have the option. It's just going to take, this chipboard is so thick, it takes a long time to cut through it. And with my Tim Holtz, you're going to hear it. It's not going to sound pretty. You're definitely going to hear it. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut these ones first. So, and with Tim Holtz, it's easiest if you make your line all the way to the edge, because then you can see it. And if you're going to go ahead and use the X-Acto knife way, you're going to want to do this anyway. This is 1 1/2. That was 1 1/2, right? Oh, excuse me, 1 1/4. 1 1/4, not 1 1/2. That's a big difference. That's a big difference. Okay. And then 1 1/2. And then 1 1/2. I'm sorry, 1 1/2. Not 1 1/2. Okay, so there's my lines. That's what I'm going to cut first. Okay. Now, listen to this. Do you hear that? It is really working hard. And I'm working hard to keep everything straight. I'm white knuckling this sucker. So there's that. I now have this and this. Okay, so now that I have these two sides, I need to do this side. Well, this is going to be 11 3/4 long, and that's too long for this, but too short for here. So I need to figure out how I'm going to jerry-rig it. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, well, I don't want to do a box lid, so let me think about this for a second. I know that it needs to be a 1 1/4 inch tall. So here's 1 1/4 inch and 1 1/4 inch. So this is going to be this bit. So there's 1. And then 2. So let's see, 1 3/4 is going to be 1 1/4. So like right here. So these are my 2 for my base. We're gonna do 11 3/4 and 11 3/4. And this is going to be 1 1/4. Now, please do not cut this until we figured it all out. In reality, this needs to be 1/4 of an inch shorter or whatever, how much ever I need this to be shorter. So it's like right here, kind of shorter. But anyway, so that's those 2. Now I've got my lids. And those lids are 1/2 inches. So we're going to add a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch. And a 1/2 inch. Okay. And I already have the lid for this part. But I need it for this part. So I'm going to make my lid 1/4 of an inch longer so that I have a little bit of a buffer. So that means this is going to be 12 and 12, and this ruler doesn't go all the way to 12, so I need to find my other ruler. Okay, and 12 is going to be like right there, like right at that spot. Okay, so these are going to be my 1/2 inch Do I only want to make it 1/4? Let me think. I do. I wanted to make it, well, do I? Hang on. Let me think. Yeah, that's fine because, okay, so this is going to be my 12 and 12. Good stuff. So that's this side of the outside box. You'll see. Okay. So that's done. Now I need to do the top. This centered. My thing can go all the way to 1.5. Width. So like right here is what I'm talking about, 1.5. And this can go like 1 inch. Oh my goodness. See, that's why I'm nervous about this. I think I'm gonna have to do 1 inch and 1 inch on top. If I do 1 inch, I'm gonna do 1 inch on both sides. Okay. So that is going to be 1 inch and 1 inch. One and 1. Okay, so now I'm going to do let's see, I can do 2 inches here, and I can do 2 inches here easily. I could do 2.5. Let's see, 2.5 would be too far in. 2 is perfect. And that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to do 2, and I'm making it square so that it is a little bit easier. Okay, so here's 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Okay. Oops. This is 2. This is 2. I am going to make the executive decision, and I'm going to cut this at like 13. Because I don't really know what size I need these yet lengthwise until I assemble the bottom of the box. So I'm going to give myself an inch extra, and I'm going to cut at 13. Cut my pieces. I did not cut this because it's not fitting on my trimmer, and I had to hand cut it, so I'm leaving these until I figure out what my lid's gonna look like, which is fine. So I've got my pieces. I cut this one down to 10 1/4. So I've got, this is what it's gonna look like, kind of. Right? So that's kind of what it's gonna look like. The issue is that I'm going to place these on top of my box base. So what will happen is it's going to jut this just a smidge, and by a smidge I mean a smidge, so that it's overhanging. And I need to get rid of that overhang on each of these pieces. And I only need to get rid of, that's the width of this. So if I'm going to lay this down, that is the amount that I need to cut off. So you see how I did that? I placed this here, and I up against the edge of here, so it's on top of my base, and then I placed my other piece perpendicular to it on my base, and then there's an overhang. I then laid it flat as best as I could and drew a mark. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this much off each piece, literally that much off each piece. Okay, so now when I go around, I've got my short edge, I've got my tall edge, and I'm going to weave them back and forth. Short edge, that looks good, and then tall edge. That one's a little bit off, and that's okay. You know, offness, when it comes to this part, is going to be covered by our deals, so I'm not worrying about it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere this together. So I don't need this full length on this, so I am going to cut it. And I am going to, what am I going to do here? So I'm going to cut this right there. Watch. I'm going to go past it and then up half and then in the middle. So I'm going to end up like a piece like this. I'm going to do that for a lot of these. So I need 2 of them on this side, right? So here is where my mark's gonna be. I'm gonna cut past it. I'm gonna cut up half to the fold mark, and then I'm gonna cut in on the fold mark. These pieces can get thrown away. You're not gonna use them, they're too small. Okay, so we've cut our fancy strips to have a little lip, and that's perfect. Now we're going to adhere our pieces together. So I'm gonna make sure I've got the right ones in the right places. I usually just start, right? I don't know where I'm gonna go with it, but I'm just gonna start. So again, I am going like this essentially on this edge. I am not going like that. So I'm going on top of my edge, and I'm justifying it to one side, and it's gonna like this. Okay, so when I add my piece, this part is going to wrap around. I want it to wrap around this way though, so I'm gonna shift and wrap around, and I want it to wrap up. So the longer piece is going to be on the bottom, and it's going to wrap up. And I'll show you what that means. So I'm going to take my glue, and I am going to go like this. So I folded it more, And I'm going to go back and forth using a fine line glue applicator so I don't have to use too much glue. Go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Perfection. So then we're gonna go like that. And I'm going to go from end to end on top like that. Press it to the edge, press it to the bottom, and then I'm going to add this guy. Now this guy is going to go and press along the edge. So I've just made my first bind. So that's what that looks like. Okay, next bind, we're gonna add this guy. Take the longer one. Now that I have this, I'm going to add it like that. Now what's going to happen with this edge right here is it's going to fold up onto my piece. So go like this, and it's going to cover the corner. Remember when I was talking about covering corners? We want to cover the corner with that little flap. So I'm going to put my cardboard on top, make it so it does the thing. I'm going to fold this before I add it. So that one's folded. It just covers the corner. It makes it nice and pretty for us. And then I'm going to add my long side to the bottom like I had done on the other one. Press it down, and I'm going to press it on to this one. So it's starting to kind of look like a box. We're going to add corners, inside and outside corners. So that's the inside corner. And I'm going to do it specifically for the broken one, so you can see how this is going to work. Then I'm going to do the outside. And I actually want to cut, so there was my mark to the top. I'm going to cut extra, and I'm going to cut in to that mark. Okay, so this is how we're going to fix this. We're going to first glue this one, the outside. So we're going to put glue here and glue here, and we are just going to make it work. So this is going to go to the bottom. Okay, and I am going to curve over. So here's a curve over and a curve over. So now my paper covers the corner, and you can't see the gap that was there. This part is going on the inside. So we're just going to dry fit it real quick, make sure everything looks good, and add our tape or glue, and then push it in. So that is a steady corner that's not going to move anywhere. Okay, so there's my corner. I'm going to do the same thing to all of them. I'll do one more. We'll do one more corner, and then what you'll do is you'll take the rest of your pieces and line the inside, and then you're going to line the top as well. So every single surface that has a corner is going to have a paper lining, just like what we did with here, but no extra flaps on the inside and this part. Only extra flaps on this one here on the outside. So here is the outside measurement. And cut. Inside measurement. And cut. Okay. I'm going to cut down to the split. And then pencil mark is going to go to the inside. So it's not shown because I don't really want it to show. I want it to look good. So this is going to go around the corner. Around the corner. Really stabilizing this. That's what this little piece of paper is doing. It is stabilizing us. Just like that. Look how good that looks. And then I've got my inside piece. And we are going to add that guy as well. I did not dry fit this, which was probably a mistake, but it's going to be fine because look. Boom, chakalaka. Boom, chakalaka. Got the box. We've got it all adhered now. Time to decorate. I always recommend doing a darker color on the bottom because it will absorb more color. Like, so it'll absorb more dirt. Because, like, look, this is already dirty and it hasn't even made it to the recipient yet. So I'm actually going to pull this paper pad. It's Surfaces from Recollections. And this paper pad is actually pretty awesome. That's where I got this pattern for the book. And then this pattern for the book. So I'm going to just pull this guy. That's going to be super nice to have. And then for the sides, do we do brick? That would be kind of cool. I could do a light wood. Could do this. I might see if I have this. This is what I'm going to use. This will match the cover. Perfect. This is what we're going to do. We got this guy. And it's going to be a little bit smaller. So we are at 10 1/4 by 11 3/4. 10 1/4 and 11 by 3/4. So I'm going to cut it 10 1/4. Double check, you know, cut once, measure twice, cut once kind of deal. And 11 3/4. So that's going to cover the whole box. However, that's going to leave a lip. So if I take off just a smidge, like a smidge, as in 1/8 of an inch on two sides, which would be 1/16 of an inch on two sides, or on opposite sides, I will be able to fit this perfectly on here. See, look at that. That's why it's important to have the edges. Yep, that's gonna look great. Okay, so this will be adhered. I'm gonna go around the edge. Now, it might be best to use something like Mod Podge. I personally don't want to get that dirty right now. Just don't. So I'm using what I got in front of me. Okay. looks good on all the sides. And I'm just going to brush it out. If you don't have a bone folder, get yourself one. I love my bone folder when it comes to making books, when it comes to making boxes, covering boxes. I've used this a lot today. So they're cheap, easy tool, very versatile. Look at how good that looks. Okay, next we're going to do the side. Now, the side might have changed. It should be 1.5. It's like 1 1/4 with a little bit. So it's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 16ths, so 3/8. Yep. Instead of 1 3/8 instead of 1 1/4. And that's because we placed the edge on top of our base. That's why it's important to re-measure. Okay, this is going to look awesome. So I cut my pieces like we did, 1 inch, 2 inch, 2 inch, and then I've got my 1/2 inch bits. So what's going to happen is these are going to go around the edge as the top lid closure. And these ones are going to go like this. Okay, so this is why I did not want to cut anything down more than I needed to, because we have to figure out how big all of these are going to be. Now, notice that I'm weaving this, right? So this one's going to be like this. This is going to look so cool. So it's going to look kind of like that, okay? We're going to reinforce stuff. We're going to add our bits here so it's not as floppy. We're going to reinforce it with paper, okay? This is going to be pretty dang sturdy after we're done. Now, I don't recommend putting anything on top of the middle of it, because that middle part is going to be acetate. And it's just going to be weak. I mean, acetate is weak plastic. I mean, it's just the nature of the game. But to make it decorative and to see the middle, I want it to be clear. And this is exactly why I wanted this image to be further down. It is what it is. It's too late. It's glued on. We're moving on. So I figure my box lid needs to be 1/4 inch bigger than my box base. And the reason it's 1/4 inch is because both of these together are about 1/4 inch. So that's what I'm going to do. This is 1 inch, so I'm going to do this is what I'm going to do. Okay, so just like the bottom, we did the top, and now I'm going to go around and do the edges. So inside edge, all the corners, inside corners, overlapping, all the things we exactly did on the other box, including this edge. And I'm going to add an edge for this right here. So I'm going to make this edge black as well, so I can really frame my book. Lots and lots and lots of covering, to the point where I don't know that I need to cover black, but it'll look nice when I've got another piece of paper that just kind of covers all of these funky seams. But I wanted to show you what I'm specifically doing on the inside. So I've got this piece here. I have double scored it so that it will go around my edge nicely. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking my pencil and I'm marking the inside edge so that I can fold on that mark square. And that is just going to give me an idea of where I need to cut to. So I am like triple reinforcing this lid so that it does not break. Like, it is solid right there. And I'm doing that by layering, right? So I'm taking this now, my knife, and cutting along the double wall to the spot where my fold line is. And then I'm going to cut it out. Just like that. I'm going to do that on both ends. So then what will happen when I'm done is I'll be able to slip this with my glue in and lay it down flat. So I'm going to do a little bit of pre-work by folding along my edges, my 1/8 of an inch score marks that are apart. I'm going to add my glue just like I would with any other, making sure that I get all the way to the edge as close as I can get, because that's where I feel like things are kind of pulling up, is on the edges of these strips. So if I try and get as close to the edge as possible, it won't be an issue. Now I'm doing this all before I even consider adding my acetate. Remember, acetate is going into this window so I can protect their precious book. So pulling down, pushing down, moving that glue around as much as I can, and going like that. So I can then use my bone folder, making sure that all the glue is where it is, just like that. And then just like that. So now I've got a strip and a strip. When I do this bit, I'll have another strip that reinforces that edge. So this bit right here is going to be like triple reinforced by the time I'm done. And then I've got one more piece, and then we will look at acetate. It's going to be glary, okay? So what I've done so far is I've covered every side. I'm going to opt to just leave this the way it is. This really doesn't need any more paper than it already has got. I'm dabbling with the idea of adding more gold. So what I did is I've got some pigment, and I added it against the edge here. It's just pigment ink, just to give it a little bit of something something. I haven't decided if I'm going to continue that trend. I might just add a little bit here and there. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to do the acetate now. So essentially what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to measure how big your opening is and make it so it's about 1/4 of an inch on every side bigger, because you want to be able to adhere it to your box lid. So mine is, let's see, 6.5 by 10.25. So that's about 7 by 10 and 3/4. Okay, so we got, this is just acetate from Michael's. You can use any acetate that you've got. 10 and 3/4 by 7. Oh, that's a little skinny. It turned out to be a little skinny. And I've got less than that left. So we're gonna go with it. No, we're not. I'm gonna cut a new piece. I don't care. I've got a 12 pack. I want to make sure I'm giving myself enough room. So I don't think 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch is enough. So I'm gonna go 1 inch. So let's see, we got 11. Let's see, what is this? If I go 11, That should be better. By 8. I could go 12 by 8. Is 8 enough? Yeah, 8 should be plenty. So let's just go by 8. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that's too big. We're going to take 1/4 inch away. There we go. Well, I'm going to take more away too because I want to make sure I can adhere the paper down to the box too, not just the acetate. So you need to be cognizant that you have space on all sides to do that. The further away you make this, the stronger it's going to be though. So like the more border you give yourself, the stronger it will adhere. So I think that's going to be fine. We're going to go like that. Now it's important not to adhere your paper yet because you want to smash this in between. So you've got your hole like to this point, and then you're going to add this to it, and we can use double-sided tape. And let's see, can I get away with, I can get away with 1/2 inch tape. That'll be good. Trying to keep this as clean as possible, but man, freaking hard. So I'm just going to go ahead and use double-sided adhesive, tear and tape, whatever you want to call it. So let's just make sure that that will work, and look at that, it will. Yay. And use my bold folder, which I've used a lot today. Again, if you don't have a bold folder, highly recommend it. It's helped me immensely today. So once I get this adhered, I can add double-sided adhesive to this side as well, and then I'll cover my inside of the box in white. Okay, here's the finished product. We've got a lid with a little nod, and then the base, and a little nod, and then the album fits perfectly inside. Woo! Took me hours. If I were to charge for this, it would be, $100 at least. Maybe 200, you know, just for sheer time alone. Not to mention all the effort that goes into it. So I hope she likes it. I really like it. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.